people talking about basically how to protect yourself, your wealth, your family, your culture, whatever it is, if you're looking for a place where you feel more safe. And it's called Nomad Capitalist Live. So, we don't take sponsors. Nobody can pay to speak. It's just entirely designed of, you want the best information from a guy who's done this for 15 years and learned through the School of Hard Knocks. We employ a team of R&D people. We serve 1,500 clients at a very high level, including multimillionaires and billionaires and celebrities. What have we learned from doing that? We talk about that stuff here. I mean, one of the days is 8 a.m. until 10:30 at night with a few breaks.
I'm speaking with Andrew Henderson, the founder of the Nomad Capitalist. I'll put a link to this website, YouTube channel down into the description below.
Well, the 5 magic words are go where you're treated best. And we love Bitcoin. We love crypto because I think people who are into that get this, that you don't have to stay in one place just because you're from there. You want to find the best tax rate. If you're an American, that's going to be a little bit more complicated. Even than being a business owner American moving overseas. If you have passive income, if you have capital gains, if you have income from stuff like staking, that can be more complicated. But how do you legally reduce your taxes? How do you get a backup plan so you have a second passport? Maybe you have a second home. That's the stuff that we talk about at Nomad Capitalist. And I think that if you're investing in crypto, if you're the CryptoDad or the CryptoDad viewer, you inherently understand that stuff is important. That's why you're in crypto in the first place. You don't want to trust one government. And fortunately, it's easier than ever not to do that.
In this situation where I decide that I want to lower my tax footprint, let's call it that. Now, are we talking about renouncing U.S. citizenship in general? Or are there ways to keep your citizenship and simply reduce your tax footprint?
Well, I did that. I renounced citizenship, and I think people think, oh, that's just a tax move. We've talked to some people that do renounce, particularly if they have a U.S. spouse, to where the U.S. spouse potentially offers them more flexibility in the future. Also, particularly, we were talking before about citizenship and where we're from. So if someone is able to get citizenship from their ancestry, let's say their grandmother was Irish or their great-grandfather was Italian, and you can get Irish or Italian or Czech or Slovak or any of these really good citizenships that allow you the same travel privileges as an American, those folks sometimes are more likely to renounce because they're not really losing much in the equation. I did renounce. I do have a non-U.S. spouse. I don't have a top quality passport through Ancestry. I just missed it. So for crypto folks, it is more complicated because of the way the U.S. tax system is set up. Is it is designed for, if you're an entrepreneur, you can go overseas. If you're working in a job or if you're working for yourself, you can take the foreign earned income exclusion. It's going to get close to about $10,000 a month. It should be free, all the different taxes. Should be totally zero tax. And then you can structure your business to where you pay somewhere between 0 and 10-ish% on the rest. And so, if you don't want to give up your citizenship, you pay 7% net on your business. It's unfair to have to pay when you don't live in the country, but whatever, that's the price it is, 7%. For crypto, it is more difficult in that, there are some things people can do, again, if they actually have an active business in crypto, potentially if you're investing with other people. But if you're just kind of on your own, investing, everyone in the family's American, that kind of thing, Puerto Rico is one of the places that really stands out as a place to move, where you've got a very, very, very favorable tax climate. You keep your U.S. citizenship, you spend 7 months down there. You spend the rest of the time in the U.S. You structure that very clearly to where Puerto Rico is kind of your main spot.
Okay.
And that is probably the easiest way for anyone, business or crypto or any way as an American. That's the most time you're going to get back in the U.S. So if you value spending time in the U.S. and you value your U.S. citizenship, then I think, not giving tax advice here, but Puerto Rico probably stands out for most people, unless you've got a lot of intricacy in your holdings. Unless, again, it's a business or you've got a complex situation. Simply moving to Dubai is not going to get rid of that U.S. tax obligation.
I see. Yeah, I was going to bring that up as far as being able to visit the U.S. I mean, if I want to go live in paradise, that's great. But, people get homesick, and that a lot of people, that might be their first question, uh, what are my options as far as, great, I've got my taxes really low, and I'm in a place where the cost of living is very low. But what about if I want to visit friends and family or just go back and see my old haunts? Do you kind of take that into account when you're dealing with someone on an individual basis?
Well, you're right. So we work with people who have, let's say, $1 million or more in assets, whether it's crypto or something else. And so, yeah, our process has evolved because I've been doing this for 15 years, and I figured out there's a deeply personal side to this that's not how many passports should I get or how do I structure my taxes. For that reason, I mean, again, Puerto Rico does offer the most flexibility. It's not a place that a lot of people are like thrilled to move to, but here's where it could be interesting. Let me make this kind of in layman's terms. Let's say you own some crypto. You bought it a year ago. If the basis for which you bought it at, you could sell it now, and it's the same, so there's no tax. And you can kind of go to Puerto Rico and reacquire that. You can hold it for a while and then sell it for a capital gain. You earn some money along the way if there's any yield from that, and then you sell it at a profit in the future. Theoretically, that could all be taxed under Puerto Rico at either zero or very low rates. Depending on how you structure it and depending on what all you're doing. And so the benefit there is you'd get a number of months back in the US every year. The other benefit is you would get the ability that once you sell that, you can theoretically come back because you've just been living in a different part of the US. It's a territory, so it's a little bit different than moving to a different state. But that's perfectly doable. Whereas if you renounce your citizenship, obviously you don't have the ability to come back. Unless perhaps you have a spouse and you can get a green card and whatever else, you can't really come back and live full time. You may be able to visit depending on your passport. If you're British or Italian or Irish, you can probably come and visit 90 days at a time. You want to avoid getting back into the tax net if you're a tourist. There's a lot of things to consider, but Puerto Rico probably stands out as the way to save the most money with the least complication of cross-border tax planning. If you're in crypto and other things that are passive, and you don't want to renounce. And so you're keeping that long-term option. But if you structure the move to Puerto Rico properly, and then you get out of the positions before you exit that Puerto Rico, and before they shut down the tax deal sometime in the next, decade or so, then, you can pocket all that money as if you just kind of like moved from California to Nevada, but much, much better.
I see. And is there, just spitballing, is there a country that if, for example, I just want to live in a nice place and I've got some money and I want to lower my tax footprint and I don't care about whether I go back to the US or not. What would be a prime country in that sense? You mentioned Dubai, but anything over in Asia attractive in that sense?
So we've helped people move to 31 tax-friendly countries, and I think a couple of not tax-friendly countries. In Asia, so keep in mind, I mean, what's interesting about crypto is fewer concerns about time zones. People who trade equity markets, so they've got a business. A lot of North Americans talk about, I want to be in a similar time zone. I happen to like Asia. So Malaysia is relatively tax-friendly. They've got an investor visa. Thailand can be tax-friendly. There's some rules on how to do that. But that can be tax-friendly because you're earning your money somewhere else. They're not tax-friendly as much if you have a job there, but if your money's coming from somewhere else. Singapore, the same, but very expensive to get into, rather complicated. They just rose the numbers through the ceiling. The Philippines, to some extent, those are the ones that would stand out in Asia. In Europe, you've got everything from Ireland to the UK, which is hard to get into, to Greece, to Italy, to Malta, to Cyprus. I think that the English-speaking ones are harder for crypto. So for most people, I think the Ireland and UK wouldn't work as well. Georgia works well. There's a lot. And then in South America, Panama, a bunch of places in Central America, Uruguay. So the whole world is kind of covered no matter where you want to be. I think Asia is a nice destination. The one reason why Asia may be less appealing to someone, and again, if you're an American and you're the average crypto person, you're probably looking at renouncing if you're going to move to Asia and enjoy substantial tax benefits. The good news is Asian countries don't care what your citizenship is. If you were to go down to the Caribbean, give them $100,000, get a second citizenship, as I did in St. Lucia, for example, get that done in a matter of months, you can then move to Malaysia. The one issue that I think some people in the crypto space don't like about Asia is they're generally more looking for an investment. So Singapore now is tens of millions of dollars to get in.
Wow.
Malaysia, you're looking at a couple 100,000. You're going to park in the bank. Thailand, they have an elite visa. You're going to pay a fee, something like 20 grand for 5 years, or you're going to park a couple $100,000 at the bank. So what I generally find from crypto folks is opportunity cost is an issue. So if you're going to Thailand, you'd rather pay $20,000 as the price of entry for 5 years of tax-free living there, come and go as you please, rather than put $300,000 in the bank at 1%, because just the opportunity cost is too much. Whereas, let's say a country in Latin America is going to be more focused on, do you have an income? Crypto incomes can be hard, but if you've got a job, a business on the side, whatever, hey, here's my $3,000 a month, let me in. They don't require the investment as much as Asian countries do. So that's a factor that for a business person who's sitting on $5 million in cash, all right, move some of the cash over there. Why not?
Sure.
But if you're in crypto, you're like, I'm making a lot more. I can't put money, dead money. I don't know. So that's where Asia maybe isn't as good.
Oh, okay. I see. Now, I'll just give you a little bit of my own history with foreign countries. I went to South Korea as an English teacher back in the mid-2000s. And that was a very structured country, very
Yes.
law-abiding citizens. It was very set how I got my visa. When I put my feet on the ground, I already had my work visa. I was working, of course, so I had a job there. But I was a foreigner in a foreign land. I didn't speak the language. And then I met my wife, who's from Indonesia, online, and went and worked there for a while, and was a completely different type of situation. There's a little bit of corruption in that country. A little less of a law-abiding sense. People, if you've ever been in traffic in Jakarta, you'll kind of know what I'm talking
The
about.
worst in the world.
Mass chaos.
Yes.
And when I was there, I was working as an English teacher in that country as well. But I spoke with someone who worked at my school that said Indonesia's a great country. It's not a great country to work in as a foreigner, but it's a great country to own a business if you're a foreigner. So some of those considerations that you might have about where you want to live might have to do with the amount of corruption or what we might call danger in a certain country. I think most of those countries that you mentioned were pretty above board. I know Europe would be. But do you, I guess what I wanted to bring out is if someone wanted to come to you and deal with you as a customer, and you would kind of evaluate their situation, would those sort of things come into play with customers in the past?
Yeah.
Like I
Those are-
love this place, but I'm a little worried about my safety.
Well, one thing you can do to make your tax easier is you can follow what's called my trifecta method. I couldn't figure out which place I wanted to live in. So I said, all right, what if you cut it up into 3 places, 4 months a year? And you can buy places very affordably. Sometimes buying a place gets you the residence permit in some of those countries.
Okay.
So I'll spend some time in
Charge
Bogota. It's not
complete.
4 months of my life. It's a couple of weeks at this point. But, I live in the nice neighborhood. You follow a couple more precautions there, but I generally don't feel unsafe. The bureaucracy in Latin America is much higher. I got a 5-year permanent residence. They decided after 3 years, you know what? We're going to add a few new things you need to do. Do that and come back and fill out some forms and blah, 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 blah. Fortunately, my team, handled most of the heavy lifting for me. But Latin America is bureaucratic. I don't see that much of the corruption, quite frankly. I mean, if you're going to Malaysia or Indonesia or Cambodia and doing their investment visa programs, I think it's pretty lightweight, quite frankly. I mean, again, there's paperwork to collect. If you've never done it, it can be frustrating. But, I don't think it's that bad. Quite frankly, I mean, I feel safer in a country where the police leave you alone a little bit. I don't want, like the US style police. I feel a lot safer in a place like Malaysia, where the people are very genuinely kind, in my opinion. As far as Europe goes, I mean, unfortunately, I do think that, some of the tax benefits for foreigners are not as good for crypto. And again, the UK and Ireland. And those are places where I feel like at least it's like, did you meet the letter of the law when it comes to moving in, getting citizenship, what have you? We've had very good experiences in Ireland in particular. You go to Portugal, they're slow. It's Southern Europe. They're not in a hurry.
Right.
I don't think it's corrupt. I just think it's like, it's bureaucratic. And I think
Right.
the closer to the equator you get, the more you have that. But I will say in Asia, I think Asia is the best for that. They are close to the equator in Southeast Asia. But I think Malaysia, Thailand, I think those are pretty safe places for where someone would live. And I would agree with your assessment that, yes, people I've known who've moved there to get a job like it a lot less than someone who just has independent wealth and moves there and just enjoys kind of floating half an inch above, the society.
Right. So one of the things I wanted to talk to you about in the interview here was the event that you're planning.
Yeah, the event.
Kuala Lumpur.
So I've lived in Kuala Lumpur off and on for close to a decade now. It is one of my favorite places in Asia. It is highly affordable if you're looking for that and you want to put more money into crypto. Probably 85% of the lifestyle of Singapore at 25%. I think it's literally, they did the numbers, 72% cheaper than living in New York City to live in Kuala Lumpur. So we're putting on our third annual event where we get hundreds of people together. And we're going to be sharing kind of 4 days of how all this stuff works, from tax savings, both for Americans and non-Americans, getting a second passport to protect yourself. I think every crypto investor needs a second passport, or even I would say 3 potentially if 2 of them are very Western. You want something that's different. How do you get that? If you don't want to spend $100,000, there are ways to do it without, with maybe waiting a couple years, and it's cheaper. So we're going to be talking about all that stuff. And we put together, not only our own team that does this for clients to kind of share all of our R&D for 4 straight days. But we also are bringing together, Jim Rogers, who is the venture capitalist. We had Max Kaiser last year. I mean, there's a whole slate of people talking about basically how to protect yourself, your wealth, your family, your culture, whatever it is, if you're looking for a place where you feel more safe. And it's called Nomad Capitalist Live. So I think you've got a link in the description for that. But
yes,
special opportunity for the CryptoDad. But we don't take sponsors. Nobody can pay to speak. It's just entirely designed of, you want the best information from a guy who's done this for 15 years and learned through the School of Hard Knocks. We employ a team of R&D people. We serve 1,500 clients at a very high level, including multimillionaires and billionaires and celebrities. What have we learned from doing that? We talk about that stuff here. I mean, one of the days is 8 in until 10:30 at night with a few breaks. There's so much, and I would do more if I could. We jam it full. So you can check out the link in the description, and it is a premium ticket, but I think the information, it's what's taken me 15 years to learn. And I'll just throw in this, by the way. I got a health screen, the most comprehensive health screening of my life. I do it every year at a place called Prince Court Hospital in Kuala Lumpur. Cost me $300. And it's in 3 hours. They rush you to the front of the line for every test known to man, basically. Much nicer than what you'd ever get in the U.S. And someone said it would probably cost you about $10,000 to do this in the United States.
I would imagine that sounded really inexpensive when you said $300. I was surprised.
You can Google Prince Court Medical Center and look at the executive health screening. And I mean, they don't pay me to talk about this, but I've just been a fan for many years. When I was first in Kuala Lumpur, I got something. I forget what it was. I went to the emergency room and I'm like, oh my God, I'm waiting for the bill. I used to U.S. healthcare. It was like $100 for like solid, like a nurse is taking care of you for hours. I leave feeling like $1 million. I was shocked. And the currency is even weaker now. So theoretically, someone who's looking at the idea of, like you're saying, exploring Asia, I think there's a lot of opportunities, lifestyle, investment, banking, what have you. Save yourself $10,000 on a medical check and then get a ticket. Come and stay with us. We're at an awesome hotel, Colonial Hotel. It's like $100 a night for a 5-star hotel. And I'm just a big fan of that place. I just love Kuala Lumpur. I want to show it to people. And if you want to join us for 4 days of nonstop information, Jim Rogers, Zuby's coming, Mark Faber, Roger Ver, and many others. Other crypto experts are coming. So yeah, very excited about it.
Now, I noticed that there were 2 tiers. There's like the normal price, and then there was like a higher access price. And what would you get for the high tier that you wouldn't get with the regular tier?
The main things in the VIPs we do, so the event is Wednesday through Saturday. Okay. And so it starts Wednesday evening. We have a few, I think 3 speeches opening it up. There's lots of networking. Thursday, I mean, just nonstop. Friday is pretty nonstop, and then you do your own dinner. Saturday, we end with Q&A in the afternoon. And then Sunday is the VIP only day. So it's me and it's my 3 top strategy people. And we sit on a couch and we just go through whatever issues you have. During the event, any speaker you want to talk to, we've got a dedicated VIP concierge. I think the maximum is 12 VIPs. So if you want to talk to anybody, they'll arrange that. We do meetings with all the speakers. They'll sign your book. We do like wine tastings with some of them, cigar tastings. I mean, whatever they're into, you get, they'll sign their book. You get to hang out. Like, so last year, Nigel Farage, Mr. Brexit was there. And we did a gin tasting with Nigel Farage. I understand that in the Bitcoin and crypto space, people are kind of have their own little niches, but like Max Kaiser came, we did an hour session with Max Kaiser. This year we'll do one with the crypto guys. So there's VIP breakfast with the speakers. Basically, it's just all access to the presenters who do mingle. I mean, Nigel Farage went around and shook everybody's hand, but you don't have an hour to talk to him as one of a few people. And then on Sunday we kind of help you put together maybe not an entire holistic plan, but we'll answer any and all questions that you have on getting it started in the right direction. And it's just better seating, better hotel room. And then we've got a VIP dinner with Jim Rogers and myself. So I grew up reading Adventure Capitalist, and I was fascinated about investing in some of these far-flung places, and now I've done it. And so it's me and Jim Rogers for VIP dinner. So, it's just that higher level of access.
Oh, that's really cool. Much more personalized.
Yeah, sit in the front row. No, it's exciting. And I think people love it, by the way. I mean, obviously in any service business, you've got a small percentage of people who are frustrated. Not a single person has told us in the last couple of years, hey, I didn't like the event. And believe me, the people that in our space, they would tell you if they didn't like something.
I would imagine.
I think 2 or 3% of the clients in recent years have been, I didn't like your service. But I think 0% of the event guests have said it. So
interesting. Okay. Well, what other stuff should we talk about?
I just think the big takeaway is to go where you're treated best. And I'll tell you, my father, when I was 12 years old, he encouraged me to read books like Jim Rogers. He would come home and show me like, hey, listen, the US is falling in the economic rankings. And he said 25 years from now, which is now, the US will not be the best place. He said, listen, you don't owe your parents to take care of us. When you're an adult, you want to be an entrepreneur, you want to be a success. You should go where you're treated best. That's what inspired it. And I think that crypto is all about doing that. It's about saying, this government doesn't work. They're not looking out for me. It's about saying this money doesn't work. It's going the wrong direction. It's a tool that they want to use to force people to do what they want. I think, especially if you're an American, Australia is getting pretty bad. Canada, we saw that they're getting pretty bad. Any Western country, you need a couple of things. Even if you're in crypto, I want some off-ramp into a bank account somewhere in another jurisdiction. If you're required to report it, you should do so. I want a residence permit or preferably a second passport somewhere. And, Robert Kiyosaki came and keynoted 2 years ago. He said 3 days. Where can you be in 3 days when it hits the fan? Have a home, be able to get there, residence or citizenship, have a way to get there. Where can you get in 3 days? And so that to me is exactly what crypto is about, is being prepared, and not just prepared in a place that's convenient, but going where you're treated best. So where's the best place to bank? is different than where's the best place to escape to, is different than where's the best place to live in the summer and get a second passport. I just spent the weekend at a 400-acre villa with a very well-connected guy. He does my trifecta method. He doesn't think that Italy's passport will serve him, but he got a different passport in Europe that allows him to summer for as long as he wants in Italy. He homeschools his child there, so his child doesn't go to the government schools, and then he'll go on when it gets too hot to move on to the next place. But he diversified so that he has something outside of the digital realm that is, good for him outside of his own country. And he really gets this. And I think that that's what it's about. It's about being diversified and choosing where you are treated best and where you are welcomed, not tolerated, and certainly not hated. Because I think if I'm a crypto guy living in the US, I don't feel so welcomed.
Right, exactly.
A lot of these politicians are out for blood.
Can you give me maybe one or two of what you would consider some of your greatest success stories? You don't have to, of course, name names of the client, but maybe just talk about where they were when they came to you and where they ended up, and if they said, "Hey, you've changed my life. I'm so much happier."
We helped one guy get 5 different passports, a crypto guy, with no traveling at all by making different financial investments. He said he wanted to be prepared for every different Black Swan event. Right. Sometimes we had one of our wealthiest clients of all. He kind of just wanted confirmation going through our process that, hey, where I'm living is exactly the best place for me. He'd already made the move, so that's a success.
Interesting.
We've helped countless, just small business owners, figure out how to lower their taxes to 5%. Moving anywhere from I want to move to Europe for Portugal, I want to move to Dubai, I want to move to Kuala Lumpur, I want to move to Mexico. So, there's a lot of stories like that. But my favorite are the unknowns on unknowns, because I think that there is a lot of complication to this stuff. People don't realize that. They think it's just like going down the street to the Chase Bank and opening an account. I'll tell you what, I become great friends with the client. And he said, the moment I got my second passport in the mail, I couldn't stop smiling. And I really appreciate that, because I feel this stuff myself. It's hard to explain until you have it. But we helped him get his second passport, and he was just so happy. And he's like, something changed inside of me that now I realized I have options. If I don't want to be American tomorrow, I don't have to be. If the US gives me problems, I can go and do something over there. I have options. And I guess the stories that make me feel the best are actually the ones where people are emotionally satisfied.
Right.
Because it's not just about saving taxes. It's about what are you going to do with that money. It's about knowing you're free. I keep watching. I'm from thousands of miles away. I'm watching the news in the U.S. and I'm scared sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm happy I'm out of it.
Right.
But it's nice to watch other people have that flexibility too.
Yeah.
I think it's so, and this is my belief on the world.
You mentioned Puerto Rico.
Well, Puerto Rico is a big one. I think that because I didn't move to Puerto Rico, because I renounced, we don't get as many people. People think, well, he didn't do it. Like, listen, I have no judgment towards serving you. We have some great, tax lawyers who do Puerto Rico. We're a general contractor, by the way. Right. We make, the average person has 8 different vendors, and we make sure they're talking to each other nicely. So it's like, I'm going to build a house. Right. I don't want to hire a plumber, a roofer, a painter. I just hire the GC and they'll handle it. Right. So we're the architect and we're the general contractor. And so we can help someone move to Puerto Rico. We've had some of those, but I think we have more people who want to renounce because that's what I did. And so they understand, like, okay, this guy means business. My philosophy is this. You talk about the dollar losing reserve currency footing. It's down from 71 to 56% this century. They get those numbers right. It didn't all go. That other 15% didn't all go to one place. 1 or 2% went to the yen. A couple percent went over here. That's how it applies to where people move. Now, the biggest thing we've done for them is Caribbean citizenship.
Okay.
Even crypto guys who might have $100 million, they say, go to Malta. It's a cost you about $1 million all in. Get citizenship in a European Union country. You've now got a U.S. equivalent passport. You could live in Switzerland. You could live anywhere you want in Europe.
Right.
and that's $1 million. And even the guy who was 100 million, it's not, opportunity cost, etc. So we do a lot of Caribbean citizenships. You donate 100, 150, $200,000. You and or the family get citizenship in a matter of 6 months. It's not as good as Malta. It's not as good as maybe what you have now, but it's a great, solid, B+ level backup. That's one of the biggest things we do. I guess Thailand, and again, I mean, obviously Americans are different because we have plenty of non-Americans also.
Sure.
Thailand, Dubai, Indonesia, they probably don't listen to me as much. Mexico's been popular. Panama, Georgia, Portugal, although it's becoming less appealing. Those have been probably some of the top places, but it's not like that's 100% of it. I mean, it's really, there's so many places. I choose to live in places that aren't that popular, by the way, and maybe I like to be a contrarian. I mean, but a few people have followed me to Malaysia. I see people all the time when I'm in Malaysia who have moved there because of what we talk about. But, that's not as popular.
Well, it looks like the time is catching up with us. But what I want to do is just kind of switch back to you full screen and have you kind of wrap up your.
Well, I think we've put in a lot of free resources over the 10 years that I've been talking to people about this. And we've seen a lot more Americans realizing they need at least a plan B and maybe a plan A. I wrote a book called Nomad Capitalist. It's on Amazon. It's like 10, 11 bucks. It's not going to give you every strategy, but it's going to start to get you in the mindset and tell you some stories that could be helpful. We've got about 2,400 YouTube videos. We've got about 1,800 blog posts at nomadcapitalist.com. So that's all free. You're like 10 bucks or whatever. I think you want to start getting yourself in the mindset, especially if you're from the US, as I was originally from, of realizing there's 252 sovereign countries and territories out there. The US is number one in pretty much nothing, not even obesity anymore. They are number one in prisoners per capita, but that's about it. And I guess war spending. I'm not saying that to be a jerk. People are, he hates the US. I'm saying that because at a certain point, facts are facts. And the idea that you live in the best country in the world is just statistically untrue. You may like it the best, but I think if you are into crypto, you realize there are problems that I fundamentally believe do not exist at the same level in many of the other countries we're talking about. If you just move to Canada, nothing's getting any better.
Right.
But what I'm hosting this, for example, Nomad Capitalist Live for is because I wanted to get people together and to share stuff that we don't want to share publicly because it's too valuable. And to have people meet up with like-minded people and realize they're not alone and learn and just get a good footing for what to do next. And we don't host the event in the US for a couple of reasons. One of them is I want people to actually have a little bit of, engagement to be somewhere else and just see. My parents came to Kuala Lumpur and said, this is better than pretty much any city in the US. Certainly better than where I'm from in Cleveland, maybe comparable to a place like Phoenix where I lived. I mean, this is better than most US cities and people don't even know about it.
Right.
So I just think it's about getting out there and exploring the world. The event is called Nomad Capitalist Live, and I would love to have the CryptoDad team there with the link in the description. It's a process of changing your mindset. I was always more interested in this stuff. I was never that patriotic. I was always pretty libertarian, even since a kid. And so this was easy for me. And I got the permission slip from my dad. Hey, feel free to leave. But if you didn't have all those things, then I just think, establishing a few flags, as they call them, around the world would be a good way to start to open up and say, hey, Chase Bank. I mean, I think if you're in crypto, these US banks suck compared to what's available around. But, even if you don't like banks that much, you'd be hard pressed to admit that the banks in Singapore aren't stronger, better run, better service, better apps, better responsiveness, better for setting payments, better for transferring currencies, better for buying properties than what you have in the US. But you're not going to know that unless you come and check it out. So that's my invitation. And that's what I think people should do.
Well, Andrew, I want to thank you so much for joining me,
Thank you.
me your valuable time. I'm going to put links to all of this down in the description below, your YouTube channel, your Amazon book, your Kuala Lumpur event. So I encourage everyone watching the video to check all that stuff out. And It's been great. Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks, sir. Thank you.
If you like this video, give me a thumbs up. If you'd like to subscribe to my channel, I would appreciate it. When you subscribe, there's a little bell that you can click that will allow you to be alerted whenever I post new content. Once again, thanks for joining me and hope to see you again soon.